The Xbox 360 was home to a ton of great zombie games, and today I wanted to take a look at and discuss 5 zombie games on the Xbox 360 that I think any undead fan should play in 2026. This is not a top 5, just 5 games that I want to discuss in no particular order. The first game on today's list is a very underrated title in my opinion, and that is Rock of the Dead. One of the things that I really love about Rock of the Dead is that it is a very simple game. It is insanely simple, but it's not particularly easy, and that's one of my favorite kinds of games that are simple but not easy. And Rock of the Dead is pretty much like Guitar Hero Zombie Edition. It's pretty much like a rhythm-based rail shooter. You don't even have to move, you don't even have to look around, all you have to do is press buttons. Now, basically the way this works is you'll see zombies or enemies, and you'll have something pop up. It'll be like green, red, blue, orange, and then you have to press the buttons on the controller to correspond with the colors shown in the little pop-up, basically. Now, this did take me quite a bit of getting used to at first, as I play this game with a standard Xbox controller, and I have the controller memorized by the letters, like A, X, Y, and B. So whenever I was first trying to play this game and all I saw was colors, I was like, okay, which is the green one again? Which is the red one again? Oh wait, no, that's not the right one. So that did take a little bit of getting used to, and this game clearly is designed to be played with an instrument controller, because sometimes you'll be expected to do some pretty fast rhythms that are really hard to do on a normal controller where you're only using like one thumb. Versus on like a guitar controller where you're using your entire left hand. So this game can take a little bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, it's a total blast, and I love rock music. And in my opinion, rock music and zombies just go hand in hand. So when you combine the two together and make a game where you kill zombies with the power of rock, yes, sign me up. That's one of the things that I like about Killing Floor so much, is the heavy metal soundtrack. And again, like I said, to me, rock music and zombie games just go hand in hand, and Rock of the Dead did a really good job delivering on that. There's a lot of great songs in this game, and one thing that really helps add to this game is it does have quite a bit of a personality to it. The dude that you play as, his name is never revealed, but he is absolutely hilarious. He has a lot of great jokes, a lot of great one-liners. This game is a pretty lighthearted story for a zombie game, and that really does help the game. Now that being said, this title is pretty short. It's only about 4 hours long, but it is very replayable. I don't know how many times I've beat this game, and sorry that my voice clicks. That's just the way I talk. Just want to say sorry for that. And there is a endless survival mode. There's actually 2 endless survival modes, so that's pretty cool. Rock of the Dead is just a great game in my opinion. Now, a little fun fact, this game was initially supposed to be an exclusive game to the Nintendo Wii, which would help explain the not great graphics, but it ended up never releasing on the Wii, which I find to be a little strange, and I read somewhere that this was a timed exclusive to the Xbox 360 before releasing on the PS3. So there's a little bit of history there for you. But yeah, Rock of the Dead, it's a great game. It isn't backwards compatible on newer Xboxes though, so you will need an original console for this one, but it's still a great game, and I highly recommend that anyone try it. Now, the next game that I want to talk about is slightly more well-known than Rock of the Dead. It's still a pretty niche game, but you might have heard of it. It's called Call of Duty Black Ops 2. I'd say probably somebody watching this has heard of that game. In all seriousness, Black Ops 2 Zombies, peak horde-based survival first-person shooter. I love Black Ops 2 Zombies, and again, going back to Rock of the Dead, just like Rock of the Dead, Black Ops 2 Zombies is overall pretty, it's just simple fun. It does take some getting used to at first. It's not something that you're just going to pick up and instantly be good at, but once you do get the hang of Black Ops 2 Zombies, it is a absolute blast. This is the best zombies mode in the entire Call of Duty franchise, in my opinion. If you want to disagree, hey, that's fine. But Black Ops 2, it's just a total blast, and I have a lot of nostalgia for this game. You know, you just start off the game with like no perks, and all you have is a crappy pistol, but the zombies are pretty weak early on, and as you kill more zombies, as you progress in the game, they progressively get stronger and stronger, and you have to buy better and better stuff. You know, you get money for killing the zombies, and you can get things like a perk called Juggernog, which increases your health. You can get like really cool machine guns or something called Wonder Weapons, which could be like a laser gun or a staff of power. You can get some really cool weapons. There's a lot of iconic weapons in zombies. I really like an assault rifle called the Galil. You know, and again, Black Ops 2 Zombies, it's just really simple. You know, you just shoot zombies. You kill zombies, and you try to live as long as possible. Now, some of the maps do have like optional Easter eggs if you want to learn a bit more about the story, or if you want to get some achievements. I'm not an Easter egg guy, and I really do prefer like the more simple, laid back maps. You know, where it's like all you have to do is just survive. You get your guns and you survive. But there are a couple more complex maps for people who want something a bit more in depth. But Black Ops 2 Zombies, it's an absolute blast. There are 4 zombies maps on disc on the base game, but with DLCs it gets bumped up to 9. But there are some pretty good maps even on the base disc. You know, there are a couple just simple survival maps. There's some great DLC maps like the one called Origins or the one called Buried. Those are a bit more expansive, if you will, versus like Black Ops 1, the first game, which was as a whole a lot more simpler than Black Ops 2. But Black Ops 2 Zombies, again, it's an absolute blast, and it's great with friends. And last I checked, it is pretty active online, last I checked, and unlike the Black Ops 2 multiplayer, thankfully there aren't really any hackers in Zombies. You will run across a hacker on the insanely rare occasion, but most of the time, Zombies fans, they're going to be playing fair. You know, they're there to play the game fairly, so that is one thing that's great. You know, a lot of Xbox 360 multiplayer games in 2026 do suffer from hackers, but Black Ops 2 Zombies is generally pretty safe. You generally don't have to worry about that. Black Ops 2 Zombies, it's awesome. Now, going into the third game on today's list, another underrated game, and that is Shellshock 2 Blood Trails. Shellshock 2 Blood Trails is a survival horror first-person shooter that is a great game under a very specific set of circumstances. So if you buy this game expecting something like Left 4 Dead, Killing Floor, Call of Duty Zombies, you're gonna leave very disappointed. And if you try to play this game on anything but the hard difficulty, again, you're probably going to be very disappointed. The only way to really enjoy this game is to put it on max difficulty and play it at night by yourself with the lights turned off. If you do that, you are going to crap your pants from terror. This game, under that very specific set of circumstances that I just named, it is one of the best survival horror games I have ever played. It is absolutely terrifying. And on max difficulty, max difficulty is really important, because on a lower difficulty, the zombies are really easy to kill, the human enemies are really easy to kill, and you have a ton of health. But on max difficulty, every single zombie, every single enemy is a very dangerous threat and should be taken seriously. Now, I know that some people say that this game graphically looks very bad, and it does, but I think in its own way, the roughness of the graphics of this game just somehow adds to the horror elements. And also, this game can be pretty janky at times. It can get kind of laggy. And, I mean, the game as a whole just feels a little on the jank side. And I think that really just adds to the survival horror element. And again, if you pick this game up wanting something like Left 4 Dead, Killing Floor, you're not going to like this game. But if you play it going in with the mindset of this is like a survival horror game and you play it on max difficulty, it can be pretty fun. Now, I will admit the story is pretty weak. Something about the Vietnam War and there's a zombie outbreak. I've beaten this game multiple times and I don't know what the story of this game is. It's kind of confusing. The story's pretty weak, but the gameplay's there. The horror elements are definitely there. And again, this is a really scary game. If you like zombie horror games, I strongly suggest looking this one up. And I believe it is illegal to own in Germany and Australia. I just wanted to throw that in there. I think it was banned for the excessive blood and gore, which I guess that's fair. You know, you can like rip zombies up with a machine gun, or if you shoot them in the head, their head will explode. You know, come to think of it, I'm not really sure how that makes sense. You know, I mean, if you shoot like a zombie's ear, their head will explode. I'm not really sure how that makes sense now that I think about it. But yeah, I do believe that this game is illegal to own in a couple of countries. Now, it is 100% legal to own in my country, where I live, thankfully. And yeah, Shellshock 2 Blood Trails. Don't buy it if you want a more action-packed Left 4 Dead experience. Buy it if you want a more slow-paced survival horror experience. And coming in for the fourth game on our list is a Kinect game, of all things, a Xbox 360 Kinect exclusive, developed and published by Sega, and that is Rise of Nightmares. Now, this game absolutely blew my mind. I bought this game, you know, I didn't think it was going to be a bad game, but I didn't think it was going to be a great game either, and it got some pretty bad reviews back in the day, but it is not worthy of those bad reviews in my opinion. This is a very solid melee first-person combat zombie horror game. Like, you know, there's a ton of enemies, there's a ton of weapons in this game. Like, the combat is very fleshed out. I mean, there are just tons and tons and tons of different enemy types. Now, you mostly will face off against various zombies, but they do have their own special abilities. Like, some can self-destruct, some have weapons for arms, some wear armor, and there are a few other enemy types tossed in every now and then. And there is pretty much every melee weapon imaginable in this game. Katanas, knives, throwing knives, a frickin' chainsaw, something that was similar to a chainsaw, but I can never remember what it's called. You have an electric blast. And this game is an absolute bloodbath. I mean, just the pure amount of dismemberments and blood and gore in this game. It's like, whoa. You know, because when you think of the Kinect, you think of like kid-friendly games. You know, you think of like, I think there was like a Kung Fu Panda game or something, Puss in Boots, Kinect Adventures. You know, whenever you think of the Kinect, you know, you think, oh, kid-friendly, family-friendly games. And then Rise of Nightmares is like, psych, I'm here to give you nightmares. And this game is pretty scary. You know, it has a really grotesque story, some very strong horror elements. You know, there are a lot of very unnerving sounds. The music can be pretty creepy. The monster designs are generally very scary. There's a stalker enemy who follows you for a good chunk of the game. I mean, Rise of Nightmares, it blew my mind. It blew my expectations, you know, and I would say that this game alone is worth buying a Kinect for. Like, this, in my opinion, Rise of Nightmares should have been pushed harder as a killer app for the Kinect. You know, not like Kinect Sports or whatever. They should have put like Rise of Nightmares. They should have really pushed that one out, because this is a very, very solid zombie horror game in my opinion. And also, this game has like the best story I have ever seen in a Kinect game. You know, most Kinect games I've played, they either don't have a story or the story is really weak, and Rise of Nightmares has a very, very strong story. Like, Rise of Nightmares, very underrated game. It was obviously held back sales-wise by simply being a Kinect game, but if you have a Kinect, pick up Rise of Nightmares. I highly suggest you gotta try this game. And finally, last but most definitely not least, we have Plants vs. Zombies. Now, I initially tried to have Plants vs. Zombies to be the first game in this video, but the thing about Plants vs. Zombies is, it's such a great game, I love it, but I really struggled to describe it. And so I had like a dozen takes where I was trying to start this video off with Plants vs. Zombies, and I just couldn't do it, because this game is so awesome. I don't have the words to describe it. I mean, sure, I do have a full 20-minute video about this game, but just trying to sum it up in a few minutes, it's like, how do you do that? Like, this game is so great. It's very simple fun, it's very straightforward, it's very addictive, and it is safe for all ages. Plants vs. Zombies is an awesome game. It has a ton of content. It has a very beefy campaign. It has some cool local multiplayer, a lot of side content like mini games or the Zen Garden, where you can just chill out, listen to music, and farm money. And the base gameplay, the base gameplay is definitely there. It's a tower defense game where you defend a house from zombies using plants. Well, who came up with that idea? That is so brilliant. Like, just the idea of plants fighting zombies, it takes a very creative person to come up with that. Just A+, just round of applause to whoever came up with this idea over at PopCap. And graphically, this game nails its cartoonish graphics. The soundtrack is great. Just everything about this game is great. This one is backwards compatible on modern Xbox, and digitally, it's $5. You get hundreds of hours of gameplay with a $5 bill. I don't know how many times I've beaten Plants vs. Zombies, and I do wish I could say more about it, but again, it's such a great game. I don't know how to describe it in just a few minutes. If you've played it, you probably agree with me. Everyone I've met who has played Plants vs. Zombies likes this game. It's just so fun, and it's so simple. It's very easy to get into. This is definitely one. If you were going to try out any of the games on this list, like let's just say, if you were new to gaming and new to zombie games, I would point you to Plants vs. Zombies, because again, it's very simple, it's very easy to get into, the controls are simple, the idea is simple. Plants vs. Zombies is a great game that we all love. And yeah, 5 amazing zombie games on the Xbox 360. If you can't tell by the name of my channel, I like zombie games, and the Xbox 360 had a lot of zombie games, and it was kind of hard to narrow this down to just 5, and I'll likely be doing a part 2, so maybe subscribe if you want to see that, and tell me down below, do you want to see a part 2? 5 more awesome games that are zombie games on the Xbox 360. If you want to see a part 2, let me know down below. And if you can't tell, this video was not scripted, and I hope y'all enjoyed. And like always, all of my content is man-made by myself, and I never consent to my voice and likeness being modified, altered, and copied by robots in any way. And for those new here, I mostly review and discuss Xbox 360 games, so feel free to check out some of my other content if that sounds like your thing. And I always try to have a Bible verse of the day in my full-length videos. So for today, we are reading from Acts chapter 1, verse 9 NIV. This is talking about Jesus. After he said this, he was taken up before their very eyes, and a cloud hid him from their sight. And yeah, that's all for me for today. You know, I wanted to make this video. I've had a lot of fun making it. Although that being said, my voice is about to die, so I need to wrap things up here. Huge thanks if you stuck around to the end. Jesus loves you all. Never forget that. I need to go drink some water. Peace. And another thing, this has the best story I think I've ever seen